Welcome to another episode of Big Ten Spotlight. We are on the other side of the new year, and we are getting ready for Big Ten play to start up again. He is Deon Thomas, the all-time leading scorer in Illinois Fighting Illini history. I am Aaron York, and I am just a guy who's excited to get back to basketball after an amazing football day we had on New Year's Day. Now it's the day after, and it's time to get back to Big Ten play. There was a little bit of action over the holiday break, and almost everyone is coming off a win. Everyone except Michigan. Woo. Michigan lost to McNeese State on Friday, and now they're on a 2-game losing streak because of the double overtime thriller. They lost against Florida in Charlotte, and this is a team we had high expectations for coming in, even with the departure of Hunter Dickinson. And they have played a really tough schedule, but it looks like Deon, they're going to be fighting an uphill battle if they want to get through Big Ten play and into this NCAA tournament field.
Man, I'll tell you. Well, first and foremost, Double A, happy 2024, my friend. Looking good to get back. Looking forward to getting back on and kicking the spotlight off again in our discussions. And man, but you're 100% right. Coming into the season, didn't really know what to expect with Michigan. I know you and I talked about this. We went back and forth, and then they turned around and they lost some games, as you mentioned, had some, a decent schedule, where they lost against some good teams. McNeese State may be better than what I think they are. I just don't ever think a Big Ten team should lose to whatever conference they're in. I'm sorry.
The Southland Conference, yes.
Okay. There's just games you don't lose. I'm sorry. You're a Power 5 conference team. You should not lose that. But if you go back, McNeese State, and I'm joking. I'm serious, but not serious when I say this. They're 11-2 right now. So that team is not a bad team. But when you go and you look at this Michigan team, man, they're one of the top, they're the third scoring offense in the Big Ten. But you're last in defense. And there's not a big enough margin in between 83 points and 79 points that's going to get you on the top end of a lot of these games, especially when you're playing against tough teams. They've had their ups and downs. Juwan Howard is a really good friend of mine. He's been a friend of mine since high school. But, the truth is what the truth is. They are not playing well right now. And I shouldn't say they're not playing well. They're not playing good enough. You talking about a team that plays like a roller coaster. Oh my gosh, their ebbs and flows and their ups and downs are monumental right now. And until you can get those guys playing on a more consistent basis, then you're going to continue to lose games like you do against teams like McNeese State. And now you're starting your Big Ten run. You can go over really quickly in the Big Ten if you're not playing up to snuff. And like I mentioned, they're the number 3 offense in the league. But then you turn around and you're last in defense. That's what I remember when Tom Thibodeau was with the Bulls, and people used to always get mad at him. Oh, this and this and this. Tom Thibodeau said one thing, and I think this is one of the things, Illinois has been living and dying on right now. Well, not much dying, but living on. Rebounding and defense. You do those two things, you got a really good chance of winning most games. And Michigan right now, defensively, I'm sorry, sucks.
Yeah, that is a blunt way of putting it. They have not been good enough on defense, and the stats show it, and so has their play. They had a chance to beat Florida. I think it was in the first overtime, again, in that game against Florida, where they had the lead late and they give up an offensive rebound. They were on defense. They give up an offensive rebound and Florida hits a 3 to equalize, and Florida would go on to win in double overtime. Against McNeese State, McNeese State, they are pretty darn good for a Southland Conference team, 77th in KenPom. And Shahada Wells is one of the best players in the country, averaging 19 points per game with 53% shooting. That's really hard to do when you're scoring at that volume. He had 30 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 steals against Michigan, but you're a Big Ten team. You're supposed to limit Shahada Wells. You're supposed to make life a little difficult for him. Instead, they go into Ann Arbor and win 87-76.
If I had some hair, I'd pull my hair out. You're right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say why. I forgot that this game was actually played in Ann Arbor. Come on. You don't lose on your home court to McNeese State. And I mean, this Michigan team, I talk about the defense, man. You cannot be next to last in defensive 3-point percent. Today's world, and you just brought this up. This is why I had to. I'm sorry to interrupt you, man.
It's all good, Deon.
I pull my hair out I don't have any hair.
Yeah.
If I had hair, I would pull my hair out if Big Ten teams can't go, whether you're on the road or at home, and defend against teams like McNeese State. But again, Michigan, we talked about their defense. They're next to last in 3-point percentage defense as well. But they're first pointers in 3-point shooting in the Big Ten. So you're either feast or famine. And I know Juwan Howard. I've known him, again, since I was 17 years old and he was 15 years old. No, this is not who he is. He is from the Fab Five, bro. Those guys rebounded. They shot the ball. They went up and down the court. They defended. They did all of these things. They rebounded. I mean, Michigan is in the middle of the pack and rebounded, even though they got some really good big bodies up there and some very athletic guards. You can't. That just cannot be a possibility. That those types of things happen. I mean, teams are coming in and out rebounding Michigan. I mean, this shouldn't happen. I'm sorry. Go ahead, big fella. No. You were making a point. And I just stepped all over you.
No, you're right. You're right. They for sure have to play better on defense. And here's the good news for Michigan. And they also have another home loss earlier to Long Beach State. So that's not good. Here's the good news for Michigan. They do have a road win against St. John's.
Yeah.
They do have a Big Ten win against Iowa. As they restart Big Ten play, they play Minnesota at home. They play Penn State in Philadelphia. They play Maryland on the road. Those are 3 games that they're going to be expected to win if they're going to get back in this NCAA tournament conversation. I think they are a mid-tiered Big Ten team. They have really good offense that is built around Doug McDaniel and Olivier Nkamhoua. And if you haven't seen Doug McDaniel play yet, he is a human highlight reel. He can cut to the basket with his quickness. He can shoot the 3 probably from 25 to 30 feet away. He has almost unlimited range. But like you said, that defense has been holding them back. If they improve in that area, they have a chance to roll off some wins here, especially in the early going. If they can win these next 3 games against teams at the bottom of the conference, they can get back into the conversation. But with the way they played inconsistently, odds are they drop 1 or they drop 2, and we'll see. It's a very important stretch for them coming up.
Yeah, and you started off by saying that, they're going to have a tough time making the NCAA tournament or really going. I agree with that 100%. They need to figure out who they are. I mean, because that's the first thing, first and foremost. Figure out who you are. You know who your main 2 dogs are. I mean, as you mentioned, you just talked about Olivier and you just talked about McDaniel. Once they figure out those are the 2 guys that they need to play through, who's that next guy? And then everybody else has to buy into their roles, and then on the defensive end. And, I've mentioned this a million times, and the Michigan fans will probably be like, dang, go on, Deon, shut up. You've talked about the defense time and time again. And I would agree with them. I don't want to sit here and talk to you, AA, about Michigan's defense. I would much rather you talk to them about them winning. And for an Illini, trust me, that's a hard thing to talk about. But that's what I would prefer, is to be talking about Michigan winning and not having these issues. But you talked about, you also mentioned the losses to Long Beach State. They have bad losses right now. And these next 3 games coming up, although they are favored, we all know that winning in the Big Ten, especially on the road, is hard. And I'll tell you from experience, that trip to Penn State sucks.
Yes.
Traveling. Oh, my God. Traveling to Penn State is god-awful and terrible. Even in today's modern innovations of plane and aviation or flight, it still sucks to have to take that trip. So
yeah, that's why I always drove up and down from New Jersey. But the one Michigan, maybe they do get a little bit of easier travel because that game is in Philadelphia, Penn State. We play one game per year, the last couple of years in the Palestra. So that is going to be in Philadelphia, so they can probably fly direct. But
no, I agree. But that's but you're coming from the Midwest, you're going east.
Yeah.
Even though Michigan is on the Eastern time zone anyway, so it shouldn't be much of a change as far as time and the feel, but it's a different feeling. You're not in your bed. You're in a hotel room. Yes, these young people should get used to, whatever the routine is on travel. I'm somebody that has done that for a long, long time, and I'm going to tell the listeners, it's not easy. So that's why, when you're going to play those road games, it's really hard. So they're going to have to muscle up and get back to playing before they start running into, the Illinois or the Purdue's or whoever else is on their schedule. Because, these, like you mentioned, these are 3 games they should win. They better win because their schedule is going to get tougher.
Absolutely. I will give my Penn State fans this one thing. When we play in the Palestra, when Penn State plays in the Palestra, it is a much more intense crowd than the sleepy old Bryce Jordan Center where there's a lot of empty seats. Penn State has so many alumni in the Philly area. They come out to the Palestra and they are going to make that a totally different environment than the Bryce Jordan Center. Last year,
it'll be essentially a home game.
Yeah, last year Penn State almost upset Purdue in that building. So it'll be a test for sure for Michigan. And let's move on to shine the spotlight on a team that we expect to have no trouble making the NCAA tournament. Purdue, back to number 1 after the hiccup against Northwestern. They have answered the call. They went on to crush Iowa. Then they beat Alabama in a thrilling game. And then in Indianapolis, they defeated Arizona. So they have answered the call. They have played this ridiculously tough schedule. We can I'll roll off all their resume wins right now. They have already defeated Xavier, Gonzaga, Tennessee, Marquette. And I said Alabama. They've also beaten, Alabama and Arizona.
Yeah. And I mean, and this is a team right now, meaning talking about Purdue, the Boilermakers. You got to take your hat off to Matt Painter and his staff, man. They have done an amazing job of getting these guys ready. When you look at them defensively, they're always in the correct position to help. And when you have a mountain of a man like Zach Edey protecting around the basket, he doesn't have to block a ton of shots. I know people will say, well, he doesn't have this many block shots. I don't care. It's hard as heck. And take it somebody that played in the post, that played the mid-range game and did all those other things to shoot over guys that are 7 foot plus, and not to mention as big as he is. That team they are right now, in my opinion, heads above. They're a class by themselves, and that's not just in the Big Ten. I'm talking national. They are in a class by themselves. Now, are they so far ahead that they can't be caught? No, they're not. And I think there are teams that really pose and systems that pose issues for them or could pose issues for them. But the way their 2 guards are playing right now, 3 guards are playing right now, it's going to be hard to beat them if those guys keep clicking and the other guys continue to excel at their roles the way they have been doing.
Yeah, here's the amazing thing about that win over Arizona. They had 2 players, both their starting backcourt players, scored more points than Zach Edey. Braden Smith, we know he started at point guard last year, but he's broken out this year into a triple-double threat. He scored 26 points, and then Fletcher Lawyer got red hot from 3-point range, scored 27 points, and Zach Edey only need to score 22 points, and he actually had 5 assists. Yeah. And he had, only 22 points. And he actually had 5 assists because he was passing out of double teams, getting the ball to the 3-point shooters, and they were playing a little inside out, and that's how they were able to take down Arizona, regain that number 1 ranking. And if not for that loss at Northwestern, we'd be having a serious conversation about, hey, can Purdue go undefeated? So, Yeah, I mean, they'll probably lose one or two more games in Big Ten play because, like you said, it is so tough. There are so many tough road environments. But, yeah, this is a team that is a serious national title contender. They are already battle-hardened from their non-conference schedule.
You nailed one thing that has really made, you see the improvement in Zach Edey. This one improvement from Zach Edey, 5 assists, being better at passing out of double teams, is one of the things that really makes this team dangerous. What did people do to them last year that, where they would have their losses? They would double team Zach Edey. He would turn over the ball, or, whether it was off his dribble or on the pass, he'd turn it over. People would turn that into easy baskets, and it hurt them. Then, of course, they had the younger guards. So now with his ability and his improvement in passing out of the post has made this team even more dangerous. But, I went on to talk about the fill-ins, the what they call a mortar when they put it in between the bricks, because right now, they are a house. Mason Gillis, great. Caleb First, playing great. The young kid, Trey Kaufman, Wren. TKR.
Yes, there you go.
All of these guys are doing those little things, getting in there, making the steal here, defending, rebounding. And this is why they are so good. They got their 3 main scorers, and then you have other guys that step in and do all of the dirty work. And then every once in a while, what's the young man that transferred?
Lance Jones.
And then Lance Jones comes in and gives you 10, 15, whatever. And now that you got 4 scores, because those other guys are going to put the ball in the basket.
Yes.
This is what makes them so difficult. Everybody understands their roles, and they've bought into their roles, and they're doing the best that they can. That goes back to those young men. I want to give them the credit. But that also goes back to the coaching staff. When you have believe in, I'm sure you've heard people say buy in. But, in the day of NIL, it may actually be buy-in. But, but the guys have to believe in what the coach is preaching. And that's why I say believe in. Because if you believe in something, you play a hell of a lot harder, even if somebody giving you money. And I think these guys believe in the direction of Matt Painter right now.
Yeah, I love what you said, because their depth, it's not just about the star power of Purdue. They have the depth. They have the role players. Like, they have everyone. A lot of guys, they don't need to score to contribute, and that is really important. It's just what makes Purdue such. They're the team that we love right now, and they're the team that maybe they finally break this Big Ten title drought that has been going on for way too long. So let's go now to Illinois, where we had some really horrible news. Terrence Shannon was charged with rape, and then he was suspended indefinitely. And we don't know if he's going to play college basketball again. It's certainly possible, given the seriousness of the allegations, that we have seen his last game in an Illinois uniform. Now, there is we're not going to speculate on the allegations, but since we expect he's going to could miss the rest of the season, we have to talk about what Illinois is going to look like on the basketball court without Terrence Shannon. He has been such a key player for them. He has been one of the best players in the nation, and losing him is going to be a big blow to their hopes here, as they still have a great shot, make the NCAA tournament. They're still in great position because of what they've done in the non-conference slate. That win over FAU looks even better now. FAU took down Arizona. So you are obviously very close to this team. Who has to step up for Illinois to accomplish what they want to accomplish and contend for the Big Ten title this year?
Well, first I'm going to say this. Anytime you lose your best player and your leader, I don't think you can replace that with one person. This is an area where you have to go back and look at the collective. And I believe the way Brad Underwood has constructed this team is really, yes, TSJ is one of the greatest players in college basketball right now. The way he was playing, first team All-American honors were at the doorstep. Maybe even trip to New York for the NBA lottery could have even been there. And it very well may be there later on. We have no idea. But the way you construct your team, you don't want to construct your team around one player or because of one player. You want to construct a complete team. And this is what I think Brad Underwood and his staff has done. Last year, I think they were the second or third youngest team in the country. This year, they're one of the oldest teams in the country. So that experience alone will help Illinois to get over, to deal with this loss of Terrence Shannon Jr. As I mentioned earlier in one of about the Michigan discussion, rebounding and defense. This is the first or second ranked team in defense in the country right now. They're first in rebounding. I do know that. They've had multiple 50 rebound games. If they can continue that, then they have enough scorers to be able to compete. Coleman Hawkins, since coming back after his knee injury, is averaging 15 points a game, not to mention 6-7 rebounds a game. So he's playing at a very high level. Justin Harmon is a kid that averaged 16 points a game at Utah State. He can definitely come in and score for you. We all know Luke Goody's a great shooter. Quincy Guerre, who averaged double figures last year at Oregon, has come in and stepped right in and is one of their leading rebounder right now. It's the way he's shooting the ball, he's shooting it lights out right now. So he's playing extremely well. Ty Rodgers, big point guard, also able to utilize his positioning. And I mentioned Coleman. Then you go to Dane Danger on the inside. So they have the ability to be able to score inside and outside. So I don't think they will have a huge drop off in offensive production, but what they are going to have to rely on is more ball movement, sharing the basketball and doing a better job with assist to turnover ratio, which they've been great the last several games. They're going to have to keep that up because you don't have that one guy that's going to take over in the end, like Terrence would do or like Ayo Dosunmu before him. But as a collective, I believe they have enough to still get past that first weekend in March. And depending on the matchups, to go even further, because this team right now is red hot. I mean, they're coming off a great win against Fairleigh Dickinson over the holidays, where they had 5 players in double figures. I mean, you get 5 players in double figures. This is still a Division I basketball team. Now, we talked about the difference in the conferences. Yeah, you're going to have that. But in their league, Fairleigh Dickinson is going to be pretty doggone good. And what did Illinois do? They treated them the way Michigan should have treated McNeese State. So these guys came out and played well. You had 5-6 guys almost in double figures. You maxed 50-plus rebounds again. You didn't turn the ball over. And I think they had their assist to basket ratio was almost 60% off of assists. That is what the remedy is for not having Terrence Shannon Jr.
Yeah, I think it's great. They got this game against FDU in before Big Ten play restarted, so they could play another team without Shannon Jr. in the lineup. And like you said, 104 points, that's pretty darn good against anybody. So they were able to get some good reps in. And like you said about Justin Harmon, I think he's someone who hasn't been exactly a star player for them, but he scored 18 points again and in 18 minutes against FDU. And he's someone who is a depth player who is going to have to step up. And Quincy Guerrier from Montreal, he has played so much better lately than he did at the start of the year. He was not a big-time scorer in November, but then 22 points in the loss at Tennessee and then 28 in the win over Mizzou. So he had already started upping his game. So that's good. And then Marcus Damask, who is someone I envision as sort of a point forward for them. He looked like he played into that against FDU. He had 11 assists, and he's someone who he could score a little more with Shannon Jr. With Shannon Jr. out of the lineup, they are going to ask Damask to score some more. And we haven't seen a ton from him aside from that 33-point outburst against FAU. So we'll see if he's got the ball in a position to score a little more. There are, like you said, this Illinois team's very deep. They have a ton of talent. They have a ton of experience, and there are guys who are more than capable of helping to fill that void and get Illinois going. And it's going to end their Big Ten play is going to restart tonight against Northwestern, and then on Friday. And yeah, we could start here talking about the upcoming schedule, the biggest games of this week. I think the biggest one is Illinois visiting Purdue on Friday night. Not a lot of college basketball action on Friday night. So if you're going to watch so a lot of the nation's going to be tuned into that one. And yeah, it's a bummer that Shannon Jr., because that would even be, if Shannon Jr. was playing in that game, it would be a really incredible matchup. But still, even without him, it is going to be a matchup against what we think are the Big Ten's two best teams. So yeah, let's talk about that game. And what other games are you looking forward to as we get into this first week of Big Ten play?
Well, I'm going to be broadcasting another big game tonight, starting tonight. I know you skipped the Friday, but you cannot overlook Northwestern. As we know, they beat Purdue. They've had some really big wins. At one point, they were ranked this year, and then suffered a terrible, unexpected loss. But you have Boo Buie. Boo Buie is one of the best point guards in the country, and there's no shortcuts around that. As we saw, he had a big game in that game against Purdue, where he went back and forth with Zach Edey, going back and forth, making I wouldn't say making a name for himself, because the young man already had a name. But he's not the only player on that team. And I mean, and that team right now is 10-2. So they're a pretty good doggone team, first and foremost. Chris Collins has done a tremendous job up there defensively, what they do. And so that's one of the areas where they're really scary, because they're going to come out and play a style of play that limits possessions. Do they get out in transition? Yes. Are they more athletic than past Northwestern teams? Yes. But they also still work the ball and move it. They don't take bad shots, and they don't beat themselves. We mentioned Boo Buie. Ty Berry is another heck of a player for them, who I really, really like. I mean, that young man can really get in and get after it. So when he's clicking, and when Boo Buie's clicking, and he's able to get, whether it's Ty Berry or any of the other guys involved, this team becomes even more difficult to beat, because they're always going to fight and keep it at a low score. And then if they can get big Matthew Nicholson going on inside, I mean, he's not a huge scorer for them, but when they can get him going, he had a good game last year when we played. If they can get him going again this year, now when they beat us in Chicago, in Evanston, that is, it gives this team a different look. And as long as they can do that, I don't care whether it's on the road or at home. We talk about defense travels, and that's going to be the first test for this Illinois team, especially without Terrence Shannon Jr., because they're going to make you earn your points. And then you're right. Then they go up and they got to travel to West Lafayette and play Purdue. But another game I would say we need to look out for is Ohio State and Indiana. Now, yes, these two teams have been what I would say slowly improving. We did our tiers in the last podcast, and I believe, if I remember correctly, both of us had them in that second tier. So these are not two just bad teams. I mean, I really like the inside players, the young inside guys over at Indiana, the young guys. And then I like the guards at Ohio State. So we'll have to see which one dominates this game. Is it inside or is it outside? And then we'll be able to tell. But that's going to be another interesting game coming up this week.
Yeah, that game is in the Fox prime time slate on Saturday. So that's going to be a game with a lot of eyeballs on it. And I expect both of those teams to be hanging around the bubble. So that's a game that down the road could have big NCAA tournament implications. And yeah, let's see what Indiana can do. They've lost to some of the best teams in the country. Their 3 losses were to Connecticut, Auburn, and Kansas. They are the only 2-0 team in the Big Ten, so they have that going for them with wins already against Maryland and Michigan, and they'll look to keep that going this week. They visit Nebraska, who's a team I don't really know what to make of Nebraska, because they have a couple strong wins against Michigan State and Kansas State. They also lost to Minnesota, and they got blown out by Creighton. So that is a test for Indiana, and then they play at home against Ohio State in a game that they're going to expect themselves to win, because I think Indiana sees itself as more of a tier 1 or tier 2 team at the top of the conference, and they're going to be able to prove if they have what it takes against Ohio State on that Saturday night. And yeah, like you said, I think this is a big test for Illinois on Tuesday. I might be looking forward to Friday, but I don't think Illinois is, especially since they have that in-state rivalry going, and because they just fresh off the loss of Shannon Jr. So I don't think anyone at Illinois is going to be overlooking that one. That should be really exciting. And yeah, we're gonna find out a lot this week. We're gonna find out a lot. The schedule is full of Big Ten games every day from tonight through Sunday, and yeah, I can't wait to see some of these results start rolling in, see how these teams look when they're actually playing against each other. We only got a small sample of that so far. So anything else you're looking forward to?
Well, I'm looking for, after this slate of games, you and I, in our next podcast, we need to sit down and do the far too early NCAA bracket. And so then we could discuss that, especially I think after this beginning early week. There we go. This early week schedule, I think we'll have a really good idea of who's who, because there are going to be some wins. We mentioned Minnesota. I think Minnesota is better than what we thought they would be. Nebraska. I think Nebraska is better than what we thought they would be. Now, granted, now you're in the Big Ten, now you're in conference where people are going to study you every single day when they know you have it coming up, especially nowadays. I used to coach. We didn't have nowhere near the amount of information that these guys have now. So then we'll really get to see who you are. But you're right, kicking off this Big Ten contest, I'm ready to see what everybody can do. And I think that would be fun if we can do our way too early brackets for Big Ten play.
Sounds good. We will see where the Big Ten teams stack up as far as where the bracketology experts say they're going to end up, who's on the bubble, who has work to do, and who's going into the field, who's going out of the field. It's always a fun discussion, no matter if it's in January or when we get into the nitty-gritty of March. Of course, we'll be talking more about that as every game starts to have major effects on that field of 68. So until next time, he is Deon Thomas. I'm Aaron York. This is Big Ten Spotlight. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, you can leave a review. If you're on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to us, this has been Big Ten Spotlight. Enjoy the basketball. Peace out.
And let's go. Hey, for you, those people, before we peace out, make sure you look at the Believe Network. Got a lot of information on there and a lot of podcasts that I think people would enjoy. But you're right. Peace out, big fella. I'll talk to you later this week.
Sounds good.